Hi, I'm Parker Dahl,
And I'm Warren Eichhoff,
and welcome to So What?
a place where we ask the question that so many of our students are thinking about when it comes to historical events. So what?
Why do I need to know where things come from? I already know how to work the internets, and things just pop up on my doorstep.
The following are but some of the answers to those questions, and as always, you should make up your opinion based on the facts.
Today, we will talk about globalization.
Specifically, the impacts of a globalized world.
We left off last time talking about decolonization and former colonies fighting for independence and starting new countries.
Turns out this wasn't the beginning of globalization. Globalization is defined as the process by which businesses or other organizations develop international influence or start operating on an international scale. The first example of this can be seen all the way back to the 1st century BCE.
Oh yeah, you may recall the ancient trade route known as the Silk Road. This trade route connected China and the Roman Empire and allowed for Chinese silks to be purchased in Rome. When these two powers fell, their influence over that Silk Road and protection also fell. Thus, trade between the two territories ultimately stopped.
Until the 13th and 14th century, when travelers like Marco Polo used the trade route to connect European countries with the Mongolian Empire, new trade allowed for spices, porcelain, and silk to become sought-after products in Europe. It also allowed for the bubonic plague to reach Europe. Oops.
Between the 7th and 15th centuries, spice routes started to rise with the spread of Islamic merchants. Luxury spices like clove, nutmeg, or mace could be found on the Spice Islands in Indonesia. While these spices grew in abundance in Indonesia, it was really hard to get them from Indonesia all the way to Europe.
Then came the age of discovery. From the 15th century to the 18th century, Europeans would utilize inventions from the scientific revolution to make long sea travel more predictable. Europeans made lasting contact with the Americas and made direct contact with Asia and the Spice Islands. Empires were created to produce, make, and sell goods within that empire as a closed system.
This started to change in the 19th century. Britain was the center of the first industrial revolution. New technology led to an increase in production, the rise of cities, and a rise in the population of people. Team this with the advent of the steam engine, and now mass-produced products can travel more easily across water and across land, connecting the world like it's never been before.
With this rise in production came a rise in demand for raw resources. Struggles for land and resource-rich Africa led European nations to fight in both World War I and World War II. During this time, global trade was at a 100-year low.
At the conclusion of World War II, trade came roaring back. With the world split in two spheres of influence, the Cold War saw an increase in trade. The United States and the EU pushed for free market trade. The Soviet Union saw a similar increase in trade, but pushed a more centralized planning approach.
When the Berlin Wall fell in 1989, globalization was able to spread the world over. The World Trade Organization encouraged all nations to enter into free trade agreements. Most of them did, and it spoke out against protectionism. If a country discouraged trade by placing high tariffs on imports, then the system would fall apart.
With the advent of the internet, globalization has seen a dramatic increase. People are now more connected than they've ever been before, and companies have ways of reaching people wherever they are, no matter what country they're in. OMG, so what?
Is that a scrunchie? Why do you even have a scrunchie?
We all get it. Things come from somewhere. But why should I care where my Hydro Flask comes from? I like having things. I just really need to focus on me right now and my brand. Excuse me while I take a selfie. OMG. Well, why don't we go ask an expert why someone should pay attention to more than their brand? Let's go talk to a member of the World Trade Organization. Hello, random World Trade Organization individual. Is there a reason why people should pay more attention to globalization outside their personal habits?
Yeah, only if they care about why they have those habits. Turns out that everything a person buys is connected through a long string of production and trade networks. That's why you find a guy like me from the WTO often in an office building, in a suit with lawyers negotiating and mediating trade between international organizations and nations. There's a lot that goes into your products, from the material cost to the production cost to shipping. Designers try to cut costs to deliver a product. This impacts style, technology, climate change, eating habits, human rights, and social media trends. Is that enough to pop that little bubble of yours?
I'm not the one with the brand. Fine. Thank you for the information. I'm gonna go rethink my life a little. As you can see, globalization has a direct impact on your life, whether you think about it or not. So, let's analyze the merits of globalization and how it is played out in the 21st century. That's this century, by the way.
The first thing someone might want to ask, who does globalization benefit? In short, it benefits everyone who practices globalization. For a developing nation open to trade and production, companies may invest in manufacturing. This brings jobs and higher wages. The people work in creating goods that will then be exported to other countries.
Many people in the United States have criticized outsourcing as taking jobs from United States citizens. And while there absolutely are jobs lost due to outsourcing, economists have actually found that the majority of jobs lost in the manufacturing field are actually due to automation. And there are some indications that had those jobs stayed in the United States, then there would have been more automation than there already has been, thus including more jobs lost. The outsourcing of products makes it to where products, when they're exported back to the United States, cost less, and thus people here actually have more spending power. You can see this with the rise of hipster coffee shops everywhere. People can frequent them more often because they can afford the extravagance.
There's a darker side to this coin. Many blame companies for exploiting nations and holding them hostage. For if workers start demanding higher wages, or if a nation wishes to raise taxes on a business, that business might threaten to move their manufacturing to a more agreeable nation. This would leave that developing nation with little investment, and people can't transfer easily, but capital can.
With global climate change a concern, people may ask if it is a byproduct of globalization. After all, globalization does encourage people to fly, the shipping of goods, the production of mass agriculture, and manufacturing.
Let's look at a case study. By 2026, Brazil will produce nearly half of the world's sugar exports and 47% of global soybean volumes. How is it that they're developing enough arable land for this? Farmers are expanding into the Amazon rainforest and cutting it down.
At 670 million hectares, the Amazon is easily the world's largest rainforest. By some estimates, more than 100 billion tons of carbon are stored there. That's more than 10 times the annual output of all fossil fuels. To put it simply, if we lost the rainforest, then no matter of mitigation could be taken against climate change. That said, deforestation over the last few decades has led to a 20% reduction in the rainforest.
While this is an alarming consequence of globalization, there may be a fix as well. American and Brazilian researchers found that if consumers demand products be sustainably sourced, then they will be produced in that way. If, for example, a product guaranteed that it did not participate in deforestation, more people might buy it.
And less people would buy the deforestation product. This would have to happen even if that product were cheaper, because then farmers would see no benefit in chopping down more of the rainforest, because no one would buy the products. This brings us to how globalization connects cultures.
The globalization of culture is something that has been occurring for some time. After World War II, it really started to take off in earnest, and it had an American tinge. World music charts featured English speakers like Elvis, Aretha Franklin, and the Rolling Stones, and even today, the highest grossing movies of all time are produced in Hollywood. Avatar, Titanic, and Avengers Endgame.
This isn't the only aspect of American culture that's going to spread the world over. Popular ideals of fast food, sugary drinks, and disposable packaging would spread around the world. These things didn't spread because they're good for people, because they're not, but because they represent an ideal that America wanted to share.
While the past 50 years may have seen globalization and Americanization being essentially synonymous, there are examples that this is changing. While music was once dominated by English speakers, K-pop sensation BTS has certainly changed that.
They aren't alone either. Latin artists such as Luis Fonsi and Enrique Iglesias have seen considerable global success.
There is a darker side to this discussion. At the start of globalization, there were an estimated 14,500 languages spoken around the world. There are only now 7,000 languages spoken today. Half of those are in danger of going extinct.
The loss of language can be the same as losing one's cultural identity. There's no longer this shared ancestral experience and the uniqueness of a local culture is lost. This can often lead to exclusion and even conflict.
While this trend is troubling, it doesn't mean that diversity will be wiped out. Luis Fonsi's track Despacito shared Caribbean culture and became the most streamed track worldwide. It showed that the Spanish language can also influence global culture, which shouldn't be too surprising since Spanish is the second most common language in the world. English is third.
Globalization can also be used to influence positive change. McDonald's was among the first to integrate women in the workforce of Muslim-majority countries like Indonesia and Saudi Arabia.
Indian-born PepsiCo CEO Indra Nooyi has been shifting away from sugary drinks and investing in businesses like SodaStream, focusing on carbonizing tap water, reducing sugar intake, and eliminating plastic waste.
While US-based sports like the NFL have been seeing a decline in recent years, the FIFA World Cup and the Olympics have been drawing more and more viewers every time they meet. While this may be some measure of the fact that these tournaments only meet every 4 years, it may also be representative that people are more invested when they have a shared experience to draw on. Everyone can go see a soccer game or even play a soccer game. American football, though, is only played in North America.
This is even being recognized by the newest adaptation of Globalization. In 2016, Rakuten signed a deal to be the main global sponsor of FC Barcelona, a soccer team in Europe.
Rakuten is a Japanese-based e-commerce company that wants to reach people outside of Japan. E-commerce companies allow people to shop and buy online and are showing themselves to connect consumers to producers all over the world. Just look at Amazon's rise in the US. Rakuten, for instance, boasted 1.2 billion users over 28 countries in the year 2018.
While there certainly are benefits, there are also costs. You can only solve the debate for yourself if you do your own research.
More than anything, act with purpose. Every action you take is part of a bigger system, so make your choices count.
I guess I dropped a lot of information on that guy. I hope he still isn't crying about his brand. Hashtag, have a nice day.
Okay, I never thought that I could impact the world. Maybe if I spend less time taking selfies, I can spend more time researching companies to actually buy from. It's time to go shopping. Responsibly.